My name is Bonga Manzini from the UDS Executive Group. I'm currently the Deputy Secretary General. And today we have another tech talk. Today we have another Unisa alumni who works as an immediate software engineer at Codehesion. He is Gabriel Mokhele. He also, for the people doing a BCom in business or in business informatics and wondering how to get into the tech world, he also done a BCom and an honors, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, he's gonna talk about his journey, how he got the job, how he went from undergrad, post grad, and moved forward to finally get a job as a software engineer at Codehesion. And for the people who don't know, Codehesion is one of like the best software development companies right now in South Africa. It's also known as one of the hardest to get into.
Yeah.
So if you are wondering how someone from Unisa, the university known as an online and people not taking seriously, how someone grew and went to reach that level. You can ask questions after he's done presenting. Thank you.
Hey, cool. Now, thanks, Bonga. Perfect introduction. Yeah, I'm not used to speaking in public, so this is gonna be really interesting for me. But yeah, I'm glad to give some kind of motivation to anyone who'd like to enter the tech world. I'll just start by sharing my screen and just please confirm if you do see my screen.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can see it. We can see it.
Okay. All right. I think they did introduce what I actually do currently. So I am an intermediate software engineer at Codehesion. Again, I'd like to iterate. This is like one of the best software engineering companies. I've been here only for 4 months, but I can, certainly testify that this company is quite top. The principles that we follow, and yeah, the few other operational stuff that we really focus on, software engineering wise, it's quite unique. We're competing against companies like your MTNs, your Vodacom when it comes to code audits and things of that nature. So yeah, and just a little bit of about myself, or rather, let me just say what I'm gonna, be speaking about in today's session. Obviously, I'm gonna mention a little bit about myself, where I come from, what I do, and then we're probably gonna have to jump to, where I studied, what I studied, and why I studied what I studied, and then delve deeper into landing my first tech role, as well as like advice as to like how to break into tech, standing out, as a Unisa student. And then obviously the last part would be a Q&A session for any questions that you guys might have regarding either my life or anything regarding, the tech world or whatever you want to, know. I'm open to answering any questions that you guys might have. Yeah. So a little bit about me. I'm from Pretoria. I grew up in Pretoria. And on a day to day, I am an intermediate software engineer. What we try and do is obviously try and build, scalable systems, cloud ready applications. And I've worked across industries like fintech, e-commerce, agriculture, sports tech, and so forth, right? And on the side, I do run my own company as a software architect, capacity role. Yeah, this is just a side hustle that I literally do in my spare time. That's the nice thing about tech. It doesn't limit you to, working for, a day-to-day job. You can take on, extra roles there and there, just to make extra cash. The thing is, most people are looking for such solutions. Hence why, it is advisable, if you are good at something, that, you take it further. If you can make more money, or you can explore other things within the tech world, privately, through your own, maybe, company, or your own capacity, or maybe helping out a friend. It's something good to do, again, you are learning. It's not like, you're wasting your time or anything of that nature, even if you don't get um uh, reimbursed for it or paid for it, right? So the languages that I do focus on currently, it's mainly JavaScript, slash TypeScript. But I do have experience with Python backend, and some C Sharp and PHP as well. When it comes to front end frameworks, I specialize in React, as well as Next.js, and, a few, front end packages, such as, your Tailwind, Vite, etc. And back end, it's mostly Node, Fast API, Flask, apps.NET Core, as well as Laravel. So if you guys don't actually know what these frameworks are, maybe it would be good to, as a first step, go through them, try and figure out what mostly resonates with who you are, and then, take a step forward to learning these frameworks. I'm fully aware that, React is well known, well used by top companies out there. If I'm not mistaken, companies like your Netflix, and other top companies, they do use these frameworks. So knowing about these frameworks and actually building out projects, it's something that can actually set you apart. And cloud and architecture, it's something that most software engineers kind of like overlook. And it's quite important to know these things, how you actually get to deploy whatever code you've written, or whatever application that you've built. You need to understand how to get it out there in the world. And in my case, I'm more focused on AWS, but at Codehesion, we focus on Azure. And yeah, most of our apps are Dockerized, Docker being one of the other, what's that, like, other things that, one needs to actually understand. The unique thing about Docker is that each and every app, has its own dependencies. It's easier to control, unlike having an operating system, or an app running on top of an operating system directly. You'd rather containerize it, and make sure that if anything should go wrong with whatever container, in this case maybe your application, then it doesn't actually affect your operating system. So hence why Docker is quite useful, and something to learn, especially in this day and age. It's used a lot. I doubt that you would join a company that doesn't, use Docker. It's quite familiar in the tech world currently. I think it's something, as a software engineer, one would certainly look at. And CI/CD as well, and that stands for continuous integration, as well as continuous deployment slash delivery, depending what exactly you would be focusing on. But yeah, that's what that stands for, and this is typically how you would handle deployments, right? Making sure that you run specific tests whenever, you deploying your apps, making sure that these apps are deployed correctly, the security is tight, and other things that you need to look out for, whenever you're putting out your app out there, especially for industries like fintech, where CI/CD pipelines matter a lot. It's not just a straightforward thing. You have to delve a bit deeper, making sure that security, especially security, it's on point, right? It doesn't mean that you're not liable to attacks if you're using a cloud platform like AWS or Azure. You always liable to security risk if you don't build your apps in such a way that they are actually foolproof. So it's something just to look out for. And data and AI, that's something that's a huge interest for me, actually. Integrating LLMs into your softwares and stuff like that. I can make a simple example about maybe a mere chatbot that would go through an LLM, provide knowledge or whatever, or whatever question maybe a user on your actual site would want to ask. You can like train these models, provide extra knowledge base to your LLM, and then that allows it to actually respond in a certain way, or in a useful way to your users on your side. So yeah, that's who I am. That's what I focus on currently. And yeah, what drives me? Solving problems all the time. I think for me, it makes me so proud shipping things that I can actually see in real time being used by so many people out here. I think that's what drives me as a person or as a software engineer, to keep improving, to keep working on myself. Moving on to the next slide. My Unisa path. So I studied becoming business informatics. This was a part-time thing while I was actually working at Discam as a cashier, by the way. Yeah, those were interesting times. So yeah, I was studying while obviously working, since I don't actually come from a fortunate background. So some of us, I'm pretty sure most would relate. You have to hustle it out, man. You can't just sit and study unless you do have the capabilities or the background that can actually support you. But with me, in this instance, I actually didn't have a very supportive background growing up. My mother did the best that she could, but obviously I had to put in extra effort personally, just to try and make a living, as well as support them as well. Hence why I had to go for Unisa instead of like just going to a university. And by the way, this was intentional. It wasn't something that like I did because maybe I was forced to just choose Unisa. It's something that I intentionally intended to do because at that time I wanted to actually work, and gain a bit of income. Yeah, and then recently, or actually this year, I just completed my BCom Honours in Business Informatics at Unisa as well. But my focus was slightly shifted more towards, information system security. And yeah, security is something that I've always wanted to, broaden my knowledge on, as well as like auditing these systems, making sure that they're foolproof, and so forth, right? And another thing, an underrated thing that maybe most people don't know about Unisa, that is that it actually teaches you discipline. You learn on your own most of the time. So it's something that most tech companies really love. So pride yourself, as a Unisian. Pride yourself in actually being able to, complete your degree or work towards your goals all alone without, minimal support or daily classes, or something of that nature. You need to pride yourself and understand that this is how the real world works as well. You have to constantly find solutions on your own, at your own time, and try to think outside the box. So it's just something that I wanted to put out there, that as a Unisian, we are fortunate to have these kind of skills kind of like engraved in us, from our early university days and so forth, where you teach yourself basically, and it requires a lot of discipline, a lot of time management. I know that most people who go through Unisa are also working, so imagine, juggling both, which is really not easy. It's really not easy. It's not like you have all your time just studying. I think most people overlook that, and that's a skill that's well needed in the tech world. So this is my journey. So throughout my journey, I obviously I was studying while I was working. I didn't include some of the most basic jobs that I worked. I worked for a lot of like basic or I don't know how best to put it, but I was working while studying basically, right? My actual first tech role was at CDA Solutions. This is a an insurance company based in Randburg, and yeah, an interesting story, actually a fact. I actually turned down a job that was gonna pay me double, the salary that I was gonna get as a junior full stack to actually, pursue my career. So um, don't be scared. Don't be scared to, get out of your comfort zone and actually, downgrade to pursue whatever you love. I feel like most successful people are doing what they love. So what's the point of you actually, chasing money whereas you're not actually happy? Hence why I actually left my job as a sales executive for this company that was producing lithium ion batteries for solar and so forth, and joined as an intern or a yes program, at CDA Solutions. And yeah, I had to obviously accept, a lesser pay, which was quite interesting. Most people wouldn't, do what I did, but I felt at that stage, it's either I need to break in or not. I think it's quite important to actually break in. And yeah, I took so many applications. I do understand the frustrating part when it comes to tech currently. It's not easy as a junior to make it out, or as an intern to get your first intern role. But I will share with you guys some of the things that I did to actually land this first tech role, right? And then I moved on from there after a few months. No, actually, after a few months, after about like 3 months, I was promoted to junior because I had an offer from another company, but yeah, they felt as though they couldn't lose me at the time. I think there was a lot of requirements which we were needed on, right? So hence why they promoted me to a junior after 3 months, which is something also that I'm gonna speak about a bit, just to motivate you guys as to like how to navigate the industry once you actually have this intern role, how to set yourself apart, because I mean, there's so many people, in this industry currently, and most of them are actually going to these so-called, better universities, which is something I don't actually agree with. But yeah, it is what it is. I think every person is entitled to their own opinion, right? So yeah, after a few months, I moved on to Senvest, which is a very big company listed on JSE. This was a graduate program. And yeah, interesting fact, I was the only black person in that graduate program out of like, I think 22 students. Yeah, and this was in Northwest. So mind you, most people that side are like Africans. So it was quite tricky for me. But yeah, again, certain things I did there also set me apart, put me on a journey where I could be recognized within the company from like top directors, as a graduate, and it's also something that I would like to motivate you guys. Don't feel under what undervalued, as a graduate, and be like, nah, they're probably assigning me just these repetitive tasks or whatever. In your free time, try to find out, the actual problems that the company faces. Well, what can you actually solve? It's quite important as a software dev to be a problem solver more than a coder, just a coder. There's so many coders, and I feel like, as a coder, you wouldn't beat AI to that. So it kind of feels a bit of a waste, if you only focusing on coding, because I mean LLMs can do that much better than what humans would. But what really sets you apart as a person is the problem solving factor that you do offer, right? And that's something that, an LLM or an AI can't like do by itself, unless you really train these agents in such a way that they can become, problem solvers, right? But that's a different topic entirely. And yeah, 2025 founded my own company. Hence why I can actually take on these extra roles via this company. And yeah, and then 2025, got a job at CubeZoo. This is a purely consulting software engineering firm, similar to Codehesion. We had various clients. That's where I actually started delving more into PHP and Python, back end. One of our clients was actually Cricket SA, hence why or I was able to tap into the sports tech world, right? And yeah, currently I am an intermediate software engineer at Codehesion, also a consulting firm. We do take on a few projects from various clients. Yeah, I think that's my journey and how it went. So getting my foot in the door, right? This was as a junior full stack dev at CDA Solutions. Obviously, I went the normal route of applying. I applied for the longest time with the same CV, trying there and there, but it didn't work. Um, I think I think it's quite important that your CV, how you structure it, is like focused towards, the job requirement itself. I understand that most internships and, graduate programs aren't really specific towards whatever, you need to actually provide or you need to do at this company that you might be joining. But you have to kind of like align your CV in such a way that, it does actually set you apart. That's an opportunity for you to sell yourself. One person might be like, but how do I sell myself? I'm from varsity. I've never worked for a company. Look, those projects that you actually do, during your varsity days, those matter as well. The simple side projects that you work on, they all matter. It's just more about how you sell it to the next person and align it to the job requirements. Doing your research also about the company that you're actually applying for can be quite useful, so that you don't like go out of context and, apply for like, machine learning, whereas that company is clueless about machine learning. They're probably focusing on insurance, right? So it's such things that you have to do research on, right? Be intentional about your CV. It can't just be a CV. You have to make sure that it is focused towards like what you really want and what the job you're applying for really wants, and that kind of like sets you apart right away, right? As well as like your APS scores. Yeah, APS, is it APT or APS? Not quite sure. But you have to like run your CV against these software tools, just to make sure that, it's well structured, because some of these companies do have these tools that actually filter out your CVs. So it's something to look out for. You can't just, build a CV and hope for the best. You have to try by all means, do your best, play your part, right? And leave the rest to the hiring managers and so forth. So yeah, and when I arrived at CDA, I went beyond, my normal day-to-day brief. I think at the time we were building a QA evaluation system that was supposed to detect, anomalies and, detect fraudulent activities that most of these QA agents would do on a day-to-day. I introduced certain unique features that were not required at all, things like comparing the call length with the actual time that you spend on an evaluation, which was something that wasn't really required, but in a way it was an extra step that I took, going beyond the actual brief that I got from my seniors at the time. And that's what like makes you unique, in this field. You can't just, follow rules all the time, where you see a gap, like try by all means to like, address it, even if you don't actually know how to, but having that thought and actually, having a conversation with your senior and being like, I'm thinking of something like this. What do you think about it? It's something that can really set you apart, yeah, that's how that went. And yeah, after 3 months, like I said, I was given a new contract as a junior, and yeah, the rest is history. So just an important thing to note. I think point number 4 says it very clearly. Solve the problem. It's not about the ticket. It's not about the brief that you get. It's not about you need to do this and that. Try by all means to go beyond just the ticket and actually solve the actual problem. And that's what sets you apart in every job. Actually, it's not just IT. You need to think about the real problems that the business is currently facing. If the business is for the client, then you need to think about what the problems the clients are facing. If it's for the users, you need to think about the problems that the users are experiencing. And that's what initially like sets you apart. And yeah, the moment that changed my life actually was at Senves. I built this custom locally hosted like AI data analyst chatbot in a way. I was just playing around. It wasn't like, a requirement or anything, part of scope or whatever, that was handed to me. It was just something I was playing around with because I constantly saw people working on huge Excel sheets and having to like run complex Excel functions and stuff like that. That's where I went on. I was like, but can't I actually integrate this with an actual chatbot that someone can easily just, question and, it would provide answers to you and actually run these complex functions for you, right? And that gained me, interest as well as recognition from the IT director at the time. And if you know Senverse, like how huge the reporting structure gets. There was so many people ahead of me for me to actually get to the IT director. But I mean, he literally DM'd me over LinkedIn and was like, tomorrow morning, please get into my office. We need to discuss whatever solution you're trying to build right now. It could be useful, especially because most of like the operational side of things, the e-commerce side, they dealt a lot with Excel sheet, right? I went even beyond that, to connect to databases, different databases, and actually querying this chatbot, and asking it questions on your actual data that lives in your database. So it's such things that set you apart. Again, you need to try and solve real problems. That's what software engineering is about. That's what IT is all about. It's not about coding. I feel like most people are attracted to the coding side of IT, whereas it's really not about coding. There'll come a point where the coding is fully, AI generated, where your actual job is thinking. It's not really coding, right? I think a lot of Codehesion guys would attest to this. Our process are mostly automated by AI. We literally hardly code like manually unless like you thrive at that or you wanna do that. But ultimately, most of these processes are automated through AI, right? So they rely on us to come up with like innovative solutions, think out of the box, try to solve real problems instead of you actually focusing on the coding part of things. So yeah, that's the moment that actually changed my life. It gained me a lot of recognition. And mind you, I was just the only black person. I think the entire department out of like 100 and something people, we were like only two black people. One was like, support, and I was the only dev. So it was quite, yeah, it was quite interesting. But yeah, so how to prepare for the industry? Build, build, build. I don't know how I can just, iterate on this. You have to build real projects. You can't rely on your certificate. You have to have something to show. And as you know, obviously code lives on GitHub. You can even go a step further, actually hosting these things that you built. There are platforms out there that are relatively cheap or allow you to host apps very cheap. I know Digital Ocean being one. There's also Vessel for static websites, which is completely free. So you actually don't have an excuse to like start building. All you need to do is just get on your laptop, download an IDE of your preference and start building these actual projects. And I mean, nowadays we have the AI that can actually speed that up for you, and put it on GitHub. Don't just build for your friends and just showing them on your local PC. Build it on GitHub. Put it out there. Add the GitHub link as part of your CV so that a recruiter can actually click there and actually see what skills you can provide, right? And learning the fundamentals, that's one of the most important thing, especially in this AI world. Most people are just vibe coding. They don't actually understand what they're doing. This doesn't mean become an expert. Just know what an API is, how to integrate an API, what it actually requires, what are databases, right? What's the whole point of a database? Understand how Git works, and as well as like frameworks from school. Try and apply them in real world scenarios. I know that most computer science students learn about like domain driven architecture and whatnot, which is all theory, but put it into actual practice. Build an app that's actually domain driven, and try to figure it out and use AI where you can to actually ask the relevant questions that you might need to ask, right? And another thing that really helped me in my life has to be networking and asking. I'm always never afraid to ask. When I arrived at Codehesion, I felt like I knew nothing because these guys that I work with are really, they're really good, right? And I felt like I didn't know anything, right? And most people in such scenarios, they just, I'll just hang in there. I'll just, ask whatever you don't know, ask. There's nothing like a stupid question, and try to learn also in your free time. Don't get comfortable just getting lost and knowing whatever go beyond that. Try and figure out, okay, what are they actually doing in other projects? Why do they do things the way they're doing it? And try to answer those questions. That's where the growth comes in, right? That's where you actually start learning. And networking and asking doesn't need you to have an internship or a job. You can literally DM anyone online, on LinkedIn, anywhere, and just be like, bro, I see you built this and this and this. How did you go about it? Most people would actually answer you. So don't be shy to ask. Don't be shy to try and gain knowledge from experts in the field because they know best. I understand that the certificate does set you apart to a certain extent, but there's nothing better than receiving knowledge from someone who's actually in the field. So do ask these people. Ask. Don't be shy to ask. I think that's what helps me so much, in many situations. And I don't find myself actually doing something in a wrong way because I ask before I even get there. And once then you can teach the next person, right? And that's how you move up the ladder. Teaching the next person ultimately means now you're starting to move towards like more senior roles where you can actually explain concepts to the next person, right? And so forth. And the last point being ship something real. This ties back to the building part. You have to have an actual project out there. You have to have one. Even if it's not like live on an actual live URL, it just lives on GitHub. But you have to have code that's out there that you can show because it does actually set you apart. That's what recruiters are actually looking for. So this is how you best prepare for the industry. Make sure that you have something to show, and AI is there to help you. You don't have to struggle like like in the past where you have to understand in depth how coding works. So some of the resources that I use to like level up and like to teach myself and like just to upskill, it has to be some of these. I use Udemy a lot. So especially if I'm learning a totally new concept, I would typically like buy a course. These courses go for like 150, 200 max. You just get a full lowdown, and usually they do also have like an actual real project that you can work on and also put out there, right? So it is quite advisable as a graduate or someone who's going to graduate to have Udemy with you and try and upskill. And I also know that they do also provide kind of like completion certifications. I'm not quite sure how what's the weight on these certifications, but I know Coursera once they do carry some weight to some extent. So if you were to include the certificate, Coursera certificate, on your CV, it would slightly set you apart. So it's mostly about just setting yourself apart, making that recruiter who's looking at these CVs be like, okay, who's this, right? It's quite important. It's quite important that you do that. And I use a lot of YouTube because with YouTube, you find those people who are just really good at explaining, right? And some of the guys that I do follow, they can actually explain very complex concepts in a much simpler way, which maybe your lecturer or a book wouldn't like really break it down in such a way. So utilize these platforms, right? Join hackathons, join these hacker ranks and so forth, because these really do mean a lot. As a graduate, you don't actually have experience to show, but these are the kind of things you can actually show, right, on your actual CV. You can show a hacker rank certificate that you've gained that focuses on like Python or whatever, or SQL or some complex SQL, as well as like some lead code problems that you might have solved. Because I know for a fact that once you solve these code or lead codes and whatever, you do actually get like some certificate, right, that you can include in your CV. So it's just something to look out for, including free code camp. And there are other open source ones that are out there that maybe you guys might know that I don't know of, but these are the ones that I usually use a lot, right? And LinkedIn. If you don't have LinkedIn, I think you in the wrong industry. In tech, you have to have LinkedIn. I feel like in our day and age, that's where you're gonna like see a lot of things related to IT, especially new tech that's out there and so forth. I think I might have missed one. So I think it's called Daily Dev. it's an app that I've also downloaded. Think of it as like a Facebook for developers. So that's also something that you can, have in your phone just to keep up with the latest trends in tech. Make sure that you know what's going on out there, because in tech, things move quickly. Things move so quickly. You have to know about what's going on out there, right? I can make an example. Recently, there was a vulnerability on one of the packages that we're using in our frameworks, right? Our front end frameworks. And if you're not knowledgeable about what's going on out there, then you wouldn't know that there is some kind of vulnerability that's going on out there. Maybe you've built a software for a big company and then they get hacked. I mean, this could cost you a client. So it's such things that you just need to keep up with. You have to keep up with the latest trends at all times. I know there are other tools out there, but these ones are the ones that I use mostly. So yeah, standing out again, discipline, discipline, discipline. I feel like, as a graduate, you can't be, groovers every time you are out there. You have to, have a level of discipline, man. You have to have a level of discipline and make sure that you're upskilling in your free time. I'm not saying become a nerd. I'm just saying, like, you have to, you know, um, put in the work. I guess you have to, invest in your own future, right? And manufacture your own experience. You can't like just rely on like getting an internship in order for your CV to be like unique. You have to build projects. If there's a freelance open source or volunteer work that you can do it. It doesn't really cost you anything, but certainly is gonna, contribute towards, your improvement, your skills and so forth. And then prove it with a portfolio. I think portfolios are also another way that you can actually uniquely set yourself apart. Build your own fancy website that just showcases your skills, the kind of projects that you've built, during varsity and so forth. And yeah, host it for free on Vessel. Vessel is completely free. You don't have to pay anything. Zero. Zero, 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 zero. You don't have to pay anything to host your code on Vessel, right? So build a portfolio right now. A static website, very fancy. Maybe you can use some animations because today's world, it's all animated and whatnot. You can build like a nice fancy portfolio that you can just put a link on your CV, and that literally just sets you apart. Because I mean, if a recruiter is going through CVs and then sees this random link that you've added there, and you like more about me or whatever, and then she clicks on it and then she sees this fancy website, with your picture and all your achievements and whatnot. That literally sets you apart. So I'm not saying it will certainly get you a job. I'm just saying, percentage wise, it does increase your chances more than just, submitting a plain CV and hoping for the best. So yeah, build your network. I use LinkedIn a lot. I try by all means to connect with random people. As long as like I see an interesting thing out there, I do connect. Try figure out how you've built something. What are the challenges that you went through, and so forth. So yeah, it's such things that can actually make you stand out. But more importantly, discipline, 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 discipline. I think discipline, it goes a long way. You have to have discipline, because there's just so much competition out here. You have to put in the work. And yeah, and then these are some of the things I just I built. Obviously, the sports tech platform with Cricket SA. There's also Hive, which is like an AI video generation type of thing. And there's also for me financial services, which is like a fintech platform. While I was at Senvest, I also built a pricing intelligent system for Take a Lot, Amazon, and so forth, and a nice dashboard. And Yeah, these are the things that I built. Some a few product scrapers as well, for a German-based company or subsidiary of Senves. So that SNL Connect was a subsidiary of Senves. And yeah, for my honors research, I built a skin cancer like detection model where I was trying to actually classify a few skin cancer types, based on a few lesion types and so forth. Yeah, I had to like retrain publicly accessible models and so forth. But again, with this honest research, it wasn't really a requirement for me to build such a complex like thing, right? But because of my interest and curiosity, I went just beyond the mere research. You have to go beyond that. That's what sets you apart. I actually got a distinction for my honors research because of that. And it's such things that set you apart in life. You have to think outside the box. Don't be afraid to try and build complex things out there. So yeah. And then three things to remember: build proof, stay driven, and back yourself. Back yourself is very important, especially as a black person in our industry. You'll mostly work with like whites and whatnot, and most people might be like intimidated, but you have to back yourself, man. You have to, I know most people aren't like really fluent, they're just like me, but you have to back yourself. You have to, say whatever you're thinking. You can't like, have like a brilliant idea and just, keep quiet about it just because, you're not there. You speak your mind. You have nothing to lose. No one will fire you for saying something. If you're wrong, they'll probably correct you and then you move on. You really have nothing to lose. So always back yourself. So yeah, remember this. You don't have to be ahead of everyone. You just have to keep going, keep building, keep, trying. Don't go with this stigma that, if you are from Unisa, you can't get a job or whatnot. I know so many people who went through Unisa who are successful out here, not only in tech, but also in other fields as well. So don't like, go with this stigma that, hey, there's specific varsities that they all go through the same process. I mean, companies out here aren't really interested about where you're from or whatever, and they're not really interested about that. All they want is to invest in someone who would like bring money back to the business. So if you can try by all means to like set yourself apart. You should be good. So yeah, I think it's about time for those questions. So yeah.
Uh, Before we get started, I would like to ask a few questions now.
Okay.
The story about you working and doing unis at the same time, I kind of relate to it because right now I work as a IT support as a service desk at a call center.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like the small projects you were building and stuff like that, I also see myself like building stuff like that. But like, I don't know how you navigated it, or maybe your situation allowed you to do so. Because like you can get like supervisors or people in the company who just, I don't want to say are lazy, but
Yeah.
they see your idea as it being too extra for them. Like
Yeah.
it's gonna disrupt the system. And as you said, like we work with old people. Like there's a lot of like you are young, and then people
Yeah.
you don't wanna when an old person hears something like, "Oh, I was gonna create an automated ticket thing that can like deposition ticket that can send tickets the
Yeah.
right way and
Yeah.
close them if they are easy to close, right?"
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get someone that's really like that only knows their way, so it's very hard for them to integrate. Like, how did you overcome, or did you ever face like challenges like that?
Bro, there's
Another question.
always okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
And another question I want to ask is between AWS and Azure, because you hear it a lot, especially I don't know like the location you're based, but in Gauteng, where you go around, especially in Midrand, they tell you like Azure is the way, like only Azure, I get the Azure certificate and then stuff like that. And Azure certificates are obtainable, but they also are like I know a few are retiring like by
Yeah.
July,
Yeah.
204 and 102 are retiring like soon. So like, how do you navigate like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do, and companies that are not utilizing like Azure are not
Okay.
gonna be like, yeah, stuff like a question like that.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So for your first question, right, you will always come across that, bro. Like, um, in any industry, there are gatekeepers. There are those people who are like, what do you know? Like, you have to persist, man. You have to like try by all means to in my case, right, I remember there was a day where when I came up with a solution. I think I was still at Senvest, right? It was regarding this pricing intelligence system that we are building, right? And I came up with an idea and whatnot, and like my direct senior at the time like shut me down. And then what I personally went on and did, I was like, okay, I'm gonna build this personally and then showcase it on LinkedIn. I'm just gonna go ahead and do it myself and showcase it to people out there who might see something in this, right? So don't like limit yourself to like I need to implement something in my company currently. Put it out there as well. Even if it's not like within your company, there might be another company that sees whatever you've built, right? Or some other guy out there who like, was like, bro, like, what's this? This is really, a good idea. I also work in support and I feel like this could solve one, two, three, and four, right? And that way you gone. That way you've gained your recognition. So don't limit yourself to like, I need to solve problems in my company. That's it. Problems are everywhere. They're not like limited to only your company, especially in support. Like every single company is, has some kind of support systems and so forth, right? So put it out there, bro. If it's a tangible solution that you can actually showcase out there, look, record your screen, go through your whatever you've done, put it out there, hashtag whatever relevant fields and whatnot, and you'll start gain traction. You'll see that you'll start gain traction out there, right? That's what I did. If you go through my LinkedIn, there's so many things that I post out there that are personal things that are not like related to my company or whatsoever, right? It's just an interesting thing that I built, and I feel like some companies might need it out there. But in your case, if it's not acceptable within the company, then put it out there, right? Because again, there will always be gatekeepers. Some people are fortunate to have people who take them under their wing, but sometimes it is difficult, and that's the reality of things, right? You have to just put it out there, bro. You can't just now hold the solution to yourself and not put it out there, right? And coming to the second question, AWS or Azure, it's really preference. I won't lie when it comes to that. It's really just preference, because both offer relatively the same services, right? There's the services for IoTs, the services for running operating systems, the services for like pipelines, data engineering stuff in both like cloud services. So it's really about like just your preference as a person, right? And doing a bit more research about whatever company you're trying to go into. If that company focuses on Azure, then learn Azure. If that company focuses on AWS, then learn AWS, or learn both, right? But at the end of the day, it's mostly preference, because both of these cloud services offer relatively the same thing. Some things are costly this side, some things are cheaper this side, and then some other services are more expensive this side, and cheaper that side. So it's really preference. So I wouldn't really have um, 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 uh, like what's that, like somehow I would say that okay, go for Azure. There should be motivation why you wanted to go for Azure. Maybe it's the company that you targeting, or you wanna join. If they're using Azure, then that's a sensible motivation to actually study or learn more about Azure instead of AWS. It's really preference, honestly. I see a hand.
Can
Um, Good evening, Mr. Mokhele.
Evenings in there.
Okay, I just want to say I'm very inspired by your story, especially since you are a former Unisa student. So it gives us a lot of hope. So my question is, you spoke about like a lot of languages like React, PHP, and Java. Did you learn some of these languages throughout your course, or were they self-taught? And then my second question is, in terms of the certifications like about AWS, do you need them before you actually get hired? So those are my questions.
Okay. Yeah, regarding the certifications, I think it's good to have certifications, especially if you don't have I'll make an example. Let's say you want to become a machine learning engineer, right? And but you studied BCom in informatics, like you did nothing related to like machine learning, right? Because I mean, BCom informatics has nothing related to machine learning, right? And then you can like add on top of your degree a certificate that's a bit more focused on machine learning. I think that slightly sets you apart, right? But there's no what do they say? There's no right way to making it out. You can make it out with like certifications. You can make it out with your qualification. You can even make it out just through like self learning, right? So there's really no like roadmap out there that says you have to have this certification for you to make it out. There are people who have certifications and still don't have those jobs, or there are people who have graduated but they still, don't have that job that they want or they studied for. So it's quite important that whatever you applying towards, learn about that field, right? And try and figure out what do you need for that field, because there isn't like one way that works for all fields. I don't know if that makes sense. You have to make sure that you learn about your industry that you're trying to embark on, because IT is huge, guys. IT is huge. You can't be like, okay, I'm just gonna study IT. That's it. No, no. You have to be niche focused. You have to make sure exactly what do you want. Do you want to become a software engineer? Do you want to become a data engineer? Okay, as a data engineer, what are the skills I need out there? It's this and this and this and this. Okay. With AWS, if I get this data engineering certificate, it really, sets me apart in the data engineering field, right? And then maybe if you're going for something else, right, you need to study machine learning, right, and focus more on that, right? And again, I will iterate this, cloud platforms are mostly dependent on whatever company that you're applying for. It's really give or take. It's not there's really no one that's like better or whatever or whatnot. You can make it with both. It's just more about what does your company use, or what does the company you're applying for use, right? Hence why you would then upskill in that specific cloud platform. And with me regarding languages, so I with BCom informatics, I think I did a bit of Python, and that's and a bit of like front end stuff like normal HTML and CSS and whatnot. Nothing really complex. So your PHP, as well as your C sharp and whatnot, those I learned on the job. So again, guys, like with IT, it's not so much about the tech stack. It's about the problem solving mindset. It's not so much about the tech stack, especially for people who are working for companies that are, consulting firms. Because I mean, a company can come here with a code base that's literally like Golang, whatever, or Go, some weird language that you've never ever done ever, right? But you still need to solve those problems. So it's really, I would say, don't focus too much on the language part, right? Just focus on building solutions, build stuff. Don't focus too much about like, okay, what language am I using to build these things, right? Yeah, to a certain extent, I know a lot of fintech, they focus more on Java and and those kind of like languages, but it's really give or take, because I know even with these fintech companies, there's a whole lot of Python scripts that are running in the background. There's a whole lot of other languages, the JavaScript and whatnot. I mean, you can't build front end frameworks with a language like Java. You'd need like something along the lines of like your HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and whatnot. So it's really about like building stuff. Don't focus too much on the language part, because languages will come and go, but like actual thinking and problem solving techniques and understanding the core principles of software engineering, those are critical, those never ever change. Even if a new language would come, those never change.
Okay, is there anyone else with a question? I open chat if anyone wants to use chat to write out their questions. But if not, if you don't mind, Mr. Gabriel, do you mentioned you mentioned while you were talking about your time working and about your when you began your role as in IT. And you said you did jobs that you didn't want to do. So when you were making your CV, did you add those jobs applying for those IT roles? Because I also have like experience in other roles where I don't necessarily add them to my CV if I'm applying for a tech role, if that makes sense. Like I've
Yeah,
worked as a sales representative
yeah.
before, but I don't view that experience as like an IT person would be like, okay, this person has experience doing this. So do you add those things? Like what do you choose to add to your CV and not?
Yeah, that's very important. Comes back to like kind of like tailoring your CV towards like what you actually want. Because what's the use of you adding like a cashier role for an IT job? Like it really doesn't make sense. There's really no point, right? And again, you just like over what's that, like populating your CV with like unnecessary information. And it's very hard, because don't forget, these recruiters, they go through a lot of CVs. They don't want to spend a whole lot of time reading unnecessary stuff. you know um I don't know, maybe if I do have an example of um yeah, I think I do have my CV. Yeah, there. So this is currently my CV, and like you, I've worked for a whole lot of companies. I was once a cashier with Discam. I also was is it this like educator things that were happening, during COVID? So I was employed as an educator assistant, for a school. And then I also worked as a sales, executive, right? But none of those roles are in my CV, because I do not apply for roles that are related to any of that. All the roles that I have here are fully focused towards IT. But then I understand from your guys' perspective that, you might not have like an IT role ever, right? And that's where you have the chance to actually showcase your soft skills that you've gained from varsity, as well as like your projects, right? If you had a project, like for instance, here's my like honors research project, which I did showcase on my CV as well, right? And yeah, a few certifications that you might have. For me, I didn't add any extra information, but because maybe your CV might be a bit smaller, you might like expand as to like what you actually learned on these certifications, not too much in depth, obviously, but just expand a bit or as to like exactly what you did. And then your experience, if like you really don't have like your CV is really small and you don't have like anything like to say, you can include like your previous experiences, but don't like overpopulate with unnecessary information. Like, don't you could like literally just say, I worked for this company, we did this and this and this in a one liner, that's it. Because it's really not relevant. The main things that should stand out are these ones, about yourself, the skills and competencies that you've learned throughout varsity. You list them out as the first thing that your recruiter should see. And then your jobs that are like not related, you put them last, 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 last. You put them actually after your education and everything. Unless they're IT focused, then you add them a bit higher up. It's more about like the eye, like, I think even you reading as a person, you don't start from the bottom, you start from the top. So make sure that the top part is really related to whatever you're applying for. Try sell yourself as much as possible in this section. Just a summary of who you are. If it's not a professional summary, just a normal summary of who you are, what interests you, what you're good at, and a few frameworks that you know of, or if you've played around with. And that's where you can even say a bit about, flex a bit, about whatever you've done, or a few things there and there. So yeah, the unnecessary skills, don't put them up there. If you feel like you wanna put them in, at least put them way below, and try by all means to like keep your CV to a minimum of like maximum 2 pages. Don't have a CV that's so long, that has so much information that's unnecessary. It really like it's really it's really relevant, because the person who's gonna read your CV will probably get bored and be like, okay, this is not the candidate, and then move on. You have to like grab their attention somehow. And I feel like these two parts are very important when you don't actually have like experience to show for, right? And then after that, you can add like your education. After your education, then hoy all your experiences that are not related to IT, just to show that you actually do have experience, right? And you can mention like some soft skills that you've learned there that might help in the role that you're joining. But for you to put them up there and like populate your entire CV with unnecessary information doesn't really help. Actually, what it does, it makes your recruiter just move on immediately from that CV. So these, just focus, make sure that the first parts are eye catching. They make sense for the role that you are applying for. Then you should be good.
Okay, thank you. This is gonna, I'm gonna ask for any more questions. Does anyone have any question they would like to ask? Uh, anyone in informatics that oh, we do have some questions in the chat. One question from Bonga. As an intermediate software engineer, is the money good? And a question from Lisa. What's the hardest lesson you've learned, the hardest lesson you have learned in your career?
Okay, the first question, I think software engineering, it is a good career. Obviously I can't disclose what I earn, but it is, above average for a normal South African. So it's so it is something that, if you do pursue, the growth is quick, is massive, and you do make like quite like good money. So yeah, I guess that's that. And yeah, the hardest lesson I've learned. That's an interesting one. I feel like, th- I struggled personally. I struggled with like self-worth, and and like just believing in myself. Growing up, I really struggled with that, right? And I had to like learn the hard way that you can't like doubt who you are. Like, every person is built different. Every person has like something unique about them. Utilize that. Don't like short, I don't know the correct word for it, but don't like, be that kind of person and like, it's fine, like, have confidence in what you've studied for. Believe in who you are. Like, believe in your capabilities. It's really not about school. It's really not about where your background. It's really not about it's really about who you are as a person. You have to believe in yourself, your skills, who you are, what you can offer in a room, full of people. You have to believe in that. That's gold. That's gold for any career. You have to have belief, and I had to work on that for the longest time. And it's hard. It's really hard, especially in this in this career path, because you do come across a lot of nerdy people, a lot of people who know actually what they're doing, and you have to like explain stuff to like clients who aren't really technical and stuff like that. You have to back yourself. You really have to back yourself. Your expertise. You are hired for your expertise. You are hired for your skills. You're hired for that unique factor that you provide. So use that. Don't be the kind of person that just like, okay, it's just work. You will never ever ever grow in life if you just like working you just going to work just to do your job, and then you come back. Go and do your job and then come back. Try by all means to be proud of what you provide. Be proud of the type of solutions that you provide out there. I mean, that's golden. That's gold. That's what drives me each and every day. Seeing the kind of apps that I build, the people, the responses I get out there. It's those kind of things that really help you in life, or the things that I've really learned, throughout my career. And yeah, I don't know if it's the hardest lesson, but yeah, I can't think of a hardest lesson. I'm not quite sure by heart what you mean. Is it like something that like taught me life, or is it something? I'm not quite sure what you mean by hardest lesson, but yeah, those are the kind of lessons that I learned throughout my career. The biggest one being like backing yourself, making sure that nothing really should like intimidate you. When you get into a room, and like, even if you don't know, like, talk as if you know. So just talk as if you know. It really helps. I remember I had like this client in one of like the jobs that I worked for at the one of the clients that I worked for at Cube Zoo. And this client, man, he was that kind of guy who'd like just interrupt you while you're speaking and whatnot. but like, now and then you should interrupt back and be like, no, what you're thinking can be done. We follow specific processes. If we go out of those processes, we might come across these and these and these challenges. You can't just keep quiet and be like, be a yes man. And it's such things that I had to learn the hard way, because once you become a yes man, then you have to back your yeses. You have to, if they were like, create this thing that's impossible for you to create, and you're like, yes, I'll create it, then you sadly have to create it. If it's impossible to do, you should say like, guys, if I have to implement this and this and this will be needed. These are the trade-offs. This is the amount of time I might need, and whatnot. You have to be realistic about these things. You can't just keep quiet and be in the corner and just accept whatever is being thrown at you. And I had to learn that, because growing up, man, speaking out was so difficult for me. It was really difficult because, yeah, it's just that confidence. It wasn't there. It really wasn't there. I felt as though I might say something and people will look at me strange or whatever, right? But yeah, you have to just really back yourself.
Okay, it looks like we also have more questions. We have one from Lakinjo. What advice would you give someone who goes through the interview process of technical tests but doesn't get an offer? And another one from Bonga. He has two. Maybe we're gonna have a few more questions after this so we can wrap it up. But the last two questions or a few questions from Bonga is, how did you prepare for an online assessment during the interview phase? And do you have a mentor?
Yeah. So I do actually have a mentor. So this mentor of mine, true story by the way, um, yeah, he was influential in my life. My life was a bit messy. I didn't have discipline. I used to smoke. I used to do a whole lot of bad things, and he taught me a lot. He is a data engineer for one of like the prominent companies in SA, which I won't like really mention. Maybe it might put him in a strange situation if this goes out there. But yeah, he really helped me. But mm, out of like all the things that he has really helped me, it's nothing really technical. It was mostly more life related. How to carry yourself, how to make sure that you respect everyone for who they are. You can't be intimidating people, and being a bad person. You have to carry yourself in such a way that represents, in this case for me, my Christian life. I have to walk the talk, and I have to try by all means to showcase that. So hence why I am forever grateful for whatever he has done for me. And it's quite important to have a mentor. If you do have a mentor, I feel like you are privileged, because most people don't get mentors who like have time for them and whatnot. So yeah, but a mentor is important, and I do actually have one. And how I prepare for online assessments, lead code, things like Codebyte and stuff like that. Most of these would come from there. Trust me, they are repeated. Just go through these like online Codebyte questions and whatnot, and try to prepare yourself as best as you can. I know with our company we use Codebyte, so going through like some few Codebyte questions and whatnot would really, really, really help. And again, one misinterpreted thing that people might have is that you have to like get 100% for your like online assessment. You really don't. They just want to see how your problem solving skills are, how you react under pressure, what principles you follow, and stuff like that, right? So it's really not about whether it works or not. It's just more about how you go about doing it, right? And if you really do attempt, and you really do like try and think, that's what they're looking for. So that's how I prepare for these assessments. Yeah, I just literally just go online, try and find like questions, what's that most common questions that are asked during interviews, and it will give you direction, towards like lead code questions or coder byte questions, and so forth, and those should be enough to prepare you. And I doubt that, like, for internships and whatnot, it would be really hard. It shouldn't be really hard. Most of them are really just checking your critical thinking, just checking how you think, numbers wise, and stuff like that. It's not like intense, software questions, whether it maybe ask to build something or whatever, right? It's mostly just try to see how your problem solving skills are like. So yeah. And other question, what advice would you give to someone who goes through interview processes, technical tests, but doesn't get an offer? Don't give up, bro. Don't give up. You can't give up. Like, you can't give up. Again, the competition is there, and see every little step, as a learning curve. Don't see it as a failure. See it as something you can improve on, I know it's very easy for me to say. I know it's very easy to say, but don't give up. You can't give up, you have to try again and learn from the mistakes that you've done, try by all means to prepare better the next time, give yourself maybe slightly more time. If maybe you saw you might have missed one or two things, do that, instead of just giving up and folding your arms, and because there is someone out there who will believe in you eventually. There will be someone out there who's like, Mara, this one, even though they didn't get like 100%, but the way they carry themselves, the way they tried, or the way they spoke, just set them apart. So you have to just keep trying, man. You can't just, because you failed a technical test, or you didn't go through to the next stage, and just, give up. Do it again, repeat the same cycle, but a bit better, a bit better. And again, it's you learning. It's not like you're not learning, you are learning. Even going through these technical assessments, because with me, even because I've faced like so many interviews, I know what to prepare. So even though like they've really like, like maybe turn me down or whatever, but I know that, okay, these are the type of questions that they usually ask. I should probably prepare more better for these type of questions. So every step, see it as a learning curve instead of seeing it as a failure of some sort.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Gabriel, for your time, for your words and the words of inspiration and your story. I'm sure there's a lot of people that definitely relate to it. We all trying to make it work somewhere or another, and you definitely do. You definitely did. Oh, we do have a question from GM. Yeah, you can speak, Mr. GM. Let me allow you open your mic. Yeah, you can open your mic.
Evening, Mr. Gabriel. I already know PHP, so I want to study this framework called Laravel. So I would like to know from you as an as a, as an intermediate software engineer, what advices can you give me when I study a Laravel framework? Like, what are the things that I can avoid that can speed my learning process?
Okay. With Laravel, I know there was like a huge vulnerability that we also faced regarding what was that package? I think it was Livewire. So what Livewire does, it helps you create like some kind of animation or like transitions or fancy transitions on a Laravel framework. So just look out for like a few vulnerabilities, because yeah, PHP has faced, or Laravel as a framework has faced a lot of vulnerabilities in recent times. So just look out for those. Do your research on what type of frameworks you should use, and yeah. And when it comes to just your architecture, by architecture I mean like how you structure your files, how you build out your code base. Try to follow like working principles out there. With our company currently, we follow a domain driven architecture, right? Where you have like domain logic that sits in domain logic, and then you have components sitting inside their own components, and trying to break down your app in such a way that it's scalable and reusable, right? And easy for another person to understand. So focus on such things. Keep your app as clean as possible. You should be able to explain it to me very easily. So if you can get that right, trust me, you're in the best position for any type of framework, right? For any type of language, you have to make it in such a simple way that even explaining it to the next person is not difficult for you, right? And that's where like principles like domain driven architecture and solid principles and stuff like that, things that you actually learn from school, do help you. But the only difference is that you have to implement them in your code actually, right? And the things like dry principles, which stands for do not repeat, whatever that's like constantly repeated through your app. So if you see that something, maybe there's a function that you constantly write all the time, you always writing it. There needs to be a way that you only write it once and then you reuse it. So it's such things that you should be focusing on the Laravel framework. And another interesting thing that I know about Laravel, that you might maybe look into, is Telescope. So what Telescope does, it helps you look at your back end from a UI perspective. You can actually see your requests, how your models are built, and stuff like that. So check out Telescope, Laravel Telescope. It is like a sort of like a I wouldn't say a package, but like it's an extension of like the Laravel framework that you can install on your app, and it allows you to have a better view of like your entire back end. So you can see how your requests are done, what models look like, and whatnot. And you can actually even test on your actual UI. So each and every API call is there for you. You can literally just trigger it with a button and see the response and whatnot. It's very easy for you to debug. Let me just put it that way. It helps you debug better. So just check out Telescope, Laravel Telescope. It's a good one.
Okay. Any more questions lastly? Yes, Cynthia.
Um, I just want to know, like, for some of us who are currently doing like mathematics and maybe information systems, and then you do get into the tech industry, are we ever gonna use any of the maths that we are currently learning?
You mean like your calculus, the complex
Yeah,
math?
because like we are going through a lot. Are we ever gonna use these things?
For me, I wish like I focused a bit more because I wanna, learn or expand my knowledge in machine learning. So if you are interested in machine learning, then trust me, you're gonna need maths. You're gonna need a lot of math. As well as an AI engineer. Because your job relatively is to like build out these models, and they follow like a specific type of like formula, and this is like math formulas for them to actually train these models and like build these models. So I guess like math also helps you with problem solving. It's not just about the math. It's just it expands as well your thinking when it comes to problem solving, how you tackle problems. So I wouldn't say don't focus on maths. I think maths is quite important. It helps. It helps in various ways, not just like the actual math, but also the soft skills that you gain from learning mathematics. So yeah.
Okay, another question. Bonga asks, have you ever been headhunted before through LinkedIn? Can that happen?
Let's hope there's no people from my company. But yeah, I'm always headhunted, even currently. Um, and it's mainly because of the projects that I have online and stuff like that. So I'm always headhunted. That's the nice thing with IT. Like you get to a level where you are actually headhunted, where you don't actually like have to constantly reach out and whatnot, right? Because recruiters are looking for such people. So yeah, I'm always headhunted. Yeah, I'm always headhunted. It's a privileged position to be in, right? But sometimes obviously it's not really the type of company I would like really like to join, or I see it as a downgrade somehow, so yeah, just look out for that. You can't just, join whatever headhunter, approaches you. You have to like do your research about whatever they're trying to offer, and try by all means to also keep up with companies. No, no, not keep up. Join companies that, follow very good principles and like follow or use the mostly used tech stack, because I mean there's more opportunities in that, instead of maybe joining a company that builds in Go. There's very few companies that build Go applications. So hence why you would like navigate more towards Python, because I mean Python is not only used in front end frameworks or web frameworks or apps or back end systems or whatever. It's also used in like machine learning. It's used also in data engineering and stuff like that. And that broadens like your options, you know. So yeah, I think that's my advice for that.
Thank you so much. Do you have any project ideas or because I know about projects, they always say real world projects that can be applied with real life situations and stuff like that. Yeah, but it's how do I say this? It's very hard to market some not to market, maybe market's the wrong word, or to build a project, right? Which is like, how do I say it? That's not, and let's say you host it, but you're just hosting it for free. It's not gonna do anything for you
Yeah,
because hosting domain stuff like that, that all costs like money, and at the end of the day,
yeah,
and you can hope that the recruiter is gonna look through your thing, and then but sometimes recruiters just look over that thing, and then they probably see a link and be like, oh, this is a waste of time, especially if it's a physical, like a physical thing,
yeah.
physical interview.
So for projects, I think the one that you have to is a portfolio. Um, like just have a portfolio, because a portfolio is basically you selling yourself, right? So that's one project I would say it's something that you can do even now, like build out a project on a latest framework like React or whatever, a very nice framework, very nice visuals. It doesn't have to have a back end. Just build a static website that showcases your skills, or just showcases something about you. Make it a bit like unique in such a way. Whatever colors that you use or fonts or whatever. Just make it a bit unique and fancy. Maybe some animation there and there. And yeah, that's a project that I feel like it's not like a project that will ever become useless. Like it's always useful to have a portfolio, because even when someone like literally just asks, okay, send me your stuff, you can literally just send them a link. Imagine a recruiter asking for a CV. You literally just send them a link of your site which has a downloadable PDF of your CV, and you're like, no, you can download it on my website or my portfolio. It's right there. It's the latest one or whatever, and that's unique. that's unique because she or he would probably ask themselves, okay, oh, this person is a bit unique. Usually I get CVs, a bunch of CVs, but this one just took me to a website, that's very nice, mobile responsive and whatnot. Maybe she can even view it on her cell phone easily and easily navigate. So that's the type of project that I can literally think of right now that you can start with immediately, and it will set you apart for sure, right? But then if you want to go beyond that, then you can play a lot with like AI stuff, like try to integrate AI somehow, build just a chatbot, right? Simple chatbot, you just generate an API key inside OpenAI, even if it uses like free tokens, it's not always working, but the actual code shows the integration, how you went about it and whatnot, right? Or even if like it works once, you just maybe take a video of it and then post it online or whatever, right? But again, projects projects that are like AI, that include AI, mostly get the most traction because currently AI is like the most talked about thing. So I would recommend like doing something related to AI. I mean, if in your position, maybe you'd automate some kind of functionality that uses AI. Maybe instead of always having tickets that are just plain tickets, you would have like maybe a small window that like takes that ticket through an LLM and then generates simple steps as to like how you can actually solve that problem. And then that like eases up the workload for the actual support guy, because maybe the AI might actually give them the correct step by step instructions without him doing necessary research, right? And that's a simple project that you can do. You can simply show that this is not just the ticketing system, but it also has an AI assistant or an AI support assistant, right? That you can utilize, or that actually helps you solve these tickets that you come across, be it hardware or whatnot. It would give you maybe a step-by-step guide as to like how to go about solving that ticket. Even if it's not accurate, at least it gives you an idea of what the problem or where to start, something like that. So people are looking for such solutions because it does minimize, instead of having like 10 support agents, you would literally minimize them to only three senior support agents, and then the rest is done by AI. So it's such things that are really useful, even if it's not like a complex solution that you're building, but you just show that, this is what I was trying to do. And yeah, that should do something, I believe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gabriel. Uh, I don't think there's any more questions from chat. Any advice for the future of technology and students? This is going to be the last question. Any advice you'd like to share with us? We've heard your soft skills about not forgetting to build yourself, not forgetting to believe in yourself, to always push. There will be roadblocks ahead, but any
Yeah,
advice on certain niches to be worried, to look out for? Is there going to be a boom? Right
yeah,
now, there's a big boom in the AI
yeah,
industry, but as you said, AI requires a lot of math. So a lot of math like focused learners have a higher I don't want to say have a higher chance of going into it, but have a higher chance of being taken into it by like those requirements by those companies. Because I know especially with physics, by honor students, people honoring in physics and stuff like that, they go into big data roles and start
yeah,
managing for finance companies and start like and also statistics. They
yeah.
go into those bigger like data. So any advice you have for the future on which niches to be aware of? Like a lot of people hear AI growing and think software is dead. Like software development, we don't need to worry about coding and stuff like that. Any advice regarding that?
For me, I know this is maybe not expected, but learn how to um use AI, or use the capabilities of AI fully. Like, guys, the last time I actually wrote a single line of code, I don't actually remember. AI is so powerful. It does PRs for me. It does everything for me. That's how powerful it is. I've even like built like this skill agent who's like an AWS expert who runs like, AWS CLI commands for me. I've put in like guardrails for it not to go beyond like reading and investigation. It should end there. It shouldn't do any writes to my like production servers and stuff like that. It's things like that that like really like I mean it makes your job so much easier, so much nicer, and AI is going nowhere. It just keeps getting better and better and better. Learn how to use these tools, man. Learn how to use these tools. They're so powerful. Trust me, they're so powerful. I can't explain how powerful it is because currently for me, there's literally nothing I can say I can't do. Like because I have AI. Like I don't believe I can't do anything software related. I don't actually believe that, and it's all because of what AI can do currently. You just need to learn how to utilize them. Play around with MCP tools. Play around with a lot of these things, man. If you see our online and some people actually like build like custom MCP tools that you can like that are open source out there. You can literally clone on your PC and play around with them. So make sure you utilize AI fully, guys. Like this thing of like I know a lot of like old heads in IT are against AI. They're like, nah, AI makes you lazy, whatnot. Trust me, this thing is going nowhere. You either join it or it's gonna take your job. A junior person will take your job because they're using AI very good. Very good. They can like deliver stuff like very quicker than what you would typically do as a senior dev coding line by line. So it's such things that you have to play around with. There's really no other way you're gonna learn if you don't play around with them. Create that random chatbot. That does like something fancy, just maybe probably reads the stats for South Africa and provides a report each and every day via email. It's something like that that's very it's overlooked, but it's so useful. And AI can do it just like that. Just like that. You know, it's just like that. It's the same solution that you can implement for a company, maybe slightly different, but it's more or less the same thing. So it's such things that I'm gravitating towards. Hence why, I'm on course to actually do my master's in AI engineering because I see like AI, it's such a huge part of my life. It's such a huge part of my life, because of what it does for me. If I get maybe a client or whatnot, I literally build them solutions in like a day or two, and then they pay me, and that's it. So it's such things that are really things that you can play around with. And once you start playing around with them, you learn about even more capabilities, other things that people don't actually know of, because most people just use AI either for coding or they just use it for like just to generate with email and stuff like that. Whereas AI is so powerful, man, so powerful. Currently I'm busy. I'm not busy with it, but like I'm helping this friend of mine. He has this thing that generates like images, and there are like platforms out there where you can actually sell images, and this AI tool is running in his server. Whenever he's sleeping, it keeps just generating images, random images, which he puts online, and he gets paid for just putting them online. And like it gets paid monthly. It's a monthly salary, that he gets, and the AI does it for him. It just keeps generating images for him. So it's such things that you will never know of until you really play around with AI. It generates slides, generates so many things. I know of even people who like post content online through AI. They don't do anything. They don't log in, they don't do anything. It's all done by an agent that they've built that does that for them and lives somewhere. All that he needs, he just needs to provide credentials for it to log in, actually like post stuff, and then it logs out. The next day it does the same thing and whatnot. And that way they're getting, monetized online just through that. The power of AI is so much. It's so much, guys. It's really so much that if you start playing around with it, you actually realize, the amount of or not business opportunity, or the amount of solutions that you can create out there. So yeah, that's my advice. Play around with AI. Play around with AI. Do the things that are people don't do with AI. Then you'll realize its power actually. You know. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Gabriel. Thank you for spending your time with us on a Friday night. Sorry, thank you for everyone who came to join to hear this. We really appreciate you coming here, telling us your story, telling us your background, and all the steps needed to take, all the steps you took to take that place you where you are.
Yeah.
We definitely appreciate it. We all, well, everyone here is gonna take this, use it, remember it. Always remember that anything is possible, no matter where you are, no matter even if it's a job that you don't like, no matter if it's something that you don't think is important now, you can still make it. Just work, work, work. Don't forget lead code, good projects, LinkedIn. All of these things might seem unnecessary now, but at the end of the day, they're gonna play a big role. And also you will be headhunted, guys. We all want to be the person that they want, not to be the person looking, not thinking we are the one that they want. We want them to want us,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. Thank you for everyone for coming. I'm gonna end off the recording now. We appreciate everyone here for coming. Any last words, Mr. Gabriel?
Now, thank you so much, guys, for having me. And please don't follow the stigma that, Unisa or whatnot. I know of so many people who went through Unisa and like they're very far, very far. So please don't follow that stigma. It's really more about what you know, what that the work that you've put in, doesn't really matter what background you're from, if you're rich or poor or whatever. It really doesn't matter. You can make it out here, and there are people out there that are welcoming. Most people think maybe certain things are just for those people, or certain things are just for these people. You can do anything that you want. You literally can do anything that you want. It's just more about like putting some effort. You have to be unique in some kind of way. And yeah, that's my last words. And thank you for having me again.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for everyone. I'm gonna end the recording now. It's gonna be available on YouTube. I'll give it about 3 hours, 4 hours, and then you can share it, look through it. His slides, it's just gonna be the whole recording, so you can review it yourself, have things you could buy. Yes, I'll also share Mr. Gabriel's LinkedIn on our group chat, so everyone can go see his things, his posts, his projects, anything, and then and connect with him. You'll be getting a lot of connections a bit now. Sorry if it disturbs your day or anything, but yeah, thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Uh, and I'll leave.